Hi, I'm Judy, and welcome to the District Stitcher number 7. This is a channel about the hobby of cross stitch, with occasionally some other hobbies thrown in, and some talks about books and recommendations and things at the end. So with that, we'll jump right into it. I don't actually have a big cross stitch update. This week, I got really obsessed with a drop spindle and spinning wool into yarn, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a minute, but I'll start off with the cross stitch in case that's all that you're interested in. You can see what I did, and see I do have some really fun haul to report. I bought some project bags because I didn't have any, and I just am in love with them, and it's from a shop in Canada, and I'll when I get to that portion, I'll talk about the shop, and I'll put a link below in the description so that you can visit that person's shop if you want to. But I'm really pleased with them, and I think they're lovely. So yeah, so we'll get into that when we get into haul. So first into stitching. Like I said, I didn't actually do much. I do have a good amount of progress on this pattern, which is, let me get it so it doesn't have any glare. This is the Year in the Woods number 1 from Cottage Garden Samplings, and this is the fox. And I am working on, I have the whole series, and I do intend on doing the whole series, but currently I'm just working on number 1. I don't have any of the rest kitted up yet. And I am doing it in DMC, and I'm working on a fabric. It's not the called for fabric, but it is also a Picture This Plus in a blue, and I don't remember the name of the blue, and I didn't save the little tag off of it, but it is a 28 count, I think it's a Belfast linen, or casual. I don't actually know what the difference is. I'm assuming it's location where it's made. I don't know. But here is my handsome fox. I got the whole body done, and now I'm just working on the tail. And I'm loving stitching on it. I love the colors, and it's nice because there's enough detail to be interesting, but it's not so intricate that I am constantly losing my place. So it's been really fun to stitch. And I love him. He's so handsome. Or she's so pretty. I don't actually know if it's a fox or a vixen. I don't know that there's a way to tell the difference, other than getting way too close and intimate with a wild animal, which don't do that. But I love the fox. So happy. And it looks so, here, I'll pull back a bit. It looks so pretty on this blue. So, I'm really loving it, and I will probably, I think this one I will definitely finish by framing. Apologies for any beeping that you just heard. It's my coffee maker going, I'm done now. So yeah, speaking of foxes, let's get into, that's really the only stitching I did. So I'm going to get into haul. And I have a lot of them. So these are project bags from Little Boat 88 is the name of the shop. It's a Canadian sewist, artisan, seller. So they did take a little time to arrive because there is a bit of a delay from Canada through the USPS, US Postal System. There is a bit of a delay. If you are in Canada, however, the shipping's probably really quick for you. But I looked all through Etsy, and I just loved the fabrics that she'd done. So I bought a whole bunch of them. So it doesn't have the fox in it currently, but I bought this one specifically for the fox because it was this pretty fabric with foxes. So these are all vinyl front, and excuse the zipper noise. I just want to show you, they come with a little needle and thread keeper. This has got there's a little piece of felt here that you can stick your needle through, and then this felt will keep little odds and ends of threads. So what I'm doing to keep projects from, sorry, zipper noise. Now we're done. To keep projects from warping on being on Q-snaps and hoops and frames and stuff too long, I'm just I'm only keeping an active project on a Q-snap, and I'll cycle these back through their storage bags. So there's the fox. Then I've got, there was this one, and these don't all match what projects are in them. I really honestly just bought the fabric that I liked. So you can see. And she had a couple different sizes. I want to say these are like 11 by 11 or 12 by 12. This one I loved because of the panel. It's like, with all the women together, like it's charming and vintage, but then it also kind of looked Stepford Wives a little bit to me. This print I love, and I think this is a Rifle Paper Company print. If it's not, it's very similar to a Rifle Paper Company print that I might have in a box somewhere. Who could resist llamas? Llama face! In my family and friend group, one of our favorite Disney movies is The Emperor's New Groove, which holds up really well. So if you were in the age range like me, where you saw that when you were like a kid, teenager, it is still actually very funny. So if you ever want to rewatch it, with your kids or just because you like Disney, it held up really well. It's still really funny. A little beehive, and this has the hive rules I stuck in this one. Because bees! This one, I don't know if this is I don't think this is a Tula Pink print, but the colors reminded me of Tula Pink, who is a fabric designer. That's got my summer geisha in there, which I will work on at some point, I just haven't yet. And then, I think this is a Lori Holt print, if I'm not mistaken. I just stuck a project in there, so. Like I said, most of them, only really the Fox and the Hive Rules have thematic bags. I'm going to pause for a minute while I put these away. Alright, I'm back. So that is essentially the extent of my stitching this past 2 weeks. Like I said, I hadn't gotten a ton. I was working a lot on the Fox, so I do have a lot of progress on the Fox. Normally I'll have progress on a couple different projects, but I'm not sure what got into me, but I had, well, first let me preface this by that's the end of my cross-stitching stuff. So if you're only here for the cross-stitch, you can stop here and move on to the next video in your Flosstube queue. So thanks for hanging there with me. If you're interested, I'm about to talk about a couple different hobbies, and then I'll get into a book recommendation if you want to stay with me. No judgment either way. Judgment-free zone. Where it's hobbies. We're here for fun. With that said, I had years ago at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, which is if you knit at all or do any sort of hobbies with wool, whether that's rug hooking, knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, anything that uses wool, or if you just want to go and pet the fluffy sheep, the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival is really fun, and it's usually in May, and several years ago I had gone and bought a drop spindle, which is a really ancient technology of spinning wool into yarn. Normally when you think of, if you're not familiar with the hobby of spinning or the task of spinning wool into yarn, what you would think of is a spinning wheel, right? Like the whole Sleeping Beauty spinning wheel apparatus. And even before that, though, what people were using to process fibers into thread that could then be knitted or knotted or crocheted or woven is basically anything that can put spin into yarn. So anytime you twist the fibers together, it makes them stronger. So they first started this in the, in the Paleolithic by taking plant fibers like flax, and just when you dry the fibers and you just twist them together and start to make what's called cordage. And that, and then somebody somewhere thought, I bet I could do this more efficiently. And then they figured out how to have something that's spinning, like a spinning top, that would transfer that twist into fibers faster. And you will find drop spindles in archaeological finds all over the world. It's just, and sometimes they're shaped differently. Sometimes they have the weight at the top, sometimes the weight at the bottom, sometimes they look different. But it is essentially one of the most basic ways of processing fibers into thread, which can then be made into fabric. And so this is, it's actually got some wool on it right now, but I'll show you. This is a drop spindle. If you are unfamiliar, this is a drop spindle. It's called a drop spindle because you spin and you drop it. So it uses gravity to keep spinning, and you can pull out this fluff called wool roving into thinner bits, which you then wrap around the base. And this creates what is called a single ply of yarn. And then once you take this off, and if you do another set, you can then use this to twist them together into a double plied yarn. You can do triple ply yarn. You can do all sorts of things. When I first started trying it several years ago, it did not go well for me. It is something that it's a very simple technology, right? Because it's basically just a spinning top, and you're just using that to twist into fiber. However, it does take a lot of practice on the movements to be able to spin and then pull and manage everything at the same time. It's a lot of coordination. So if you're not if you're not used to that, it does have a learning curve, especially if you are not very coordinated. It's a bit of a learning curve. And I had, years ago, I gotten frustrated with it, and I just put it away. I don't know what got into me, but I was like, I want to try spinning again. I don't know why. It's not like I saw a post or anything. I just thought about it and like, yeah, all right, let's try that. So I spent a week sort of working out how to do it. This is my third bit of, this is hand-dyed roving that I bought from somebody off Etsy. And my first, actually balled up here, if you can see it. It's a little harder to see because I have it in a ball. But this was a really pretty multicolored pastel roving that I processed into yarn. And then I had, during lockdown, didn't all of us buy stuff for some hobby, and then we never did it during quarantine in 2020. So I had bought a loom. And so this was my first attempt at weaving a little tapestry. So you can see, like, it's a little loose up here. I learned a little too late to, like, hem stitch it. I might go back and try to hem stitch. But there's ways to finish your weaving so that it doesn't have that. But still, anyway, for a first attempt, it's cute. And then I tied little knots at the bottom. It was fun. It's a fun little weekend project last weekend. So that is that. And then I'm getting a lot better at spinning with even tension, to make it just even, rather than just lumpy yarn. And then I did another one, and this is still drying, so I haven't twisted it up as a skein, but this is the next bit. And I just absolutely love these colors. Just absolutely adore it. Like I said, it's still slightly damp, because one of the things I learned is that after you spin and so this is 2 singles that are plied together. So remember what I said on, this is a single. So I spin a single, I take it off into a ball, a bobbin, whatever you want to wind it off onto. And then you can use the spindle again to spin again. And so this is, I split roving into 2, and I wove 2 singles, or spun 2 singles, and then I plied them together. And plying together is you're just twisting them together. And usually you spin a single one way, like clockwise, and then when you ply them together, you spin the other way, so counterclockwise. There's names for it. S-twist, Z-twist, say Diosel and Widdershins. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. You just spin it the opposite way. And that makes the fibers sort of lock together and hold. In another way, after you do that, you can soak it just in some water. You can use soap if you want to, but I wouldn't, with hand-dyed fibers, unless it's like a really dye-safe soap. Anyway, I just soaked it in some water, and then when I lifted it out, I put my hands through and I pulled really quickly, and that's a technique called snapping. Sorry, I have that on a hanger. So you pull and you snap it. And what that does is it evens out the twist and the fibers, and so it also makes sure that your yarn isn't like kinking up anywhere, and just sets it nicely. So this is still slightly damp, so I haven't twisted it up into a skein like you would see in yarn stores and stuff, but I'm so excited with how that came out. I'm really pleased. It's always really satisfying when you learn a new skill, and you put time and effort into it, and then you get a product that you're happy with. So I'm still improving, and I'm still having fun with it, but that has been what's holding my attention this week, instead of, so in the evening I just turn off all my electronics and I just spin. And that it's been a really nice way to sort of unplug after a work day. So, I'm sure I will get bitten again by the cross-stitching bug, because it's a constant through line. And I do really like that fox. And also spinning can be a little hard on my finger joints, because you're pinching, constantly pinching. And also when you ply like this, the spindle starts to get heavier and heavier as you get more wool on it. So it can be you might want to break. And when I take a break, I can just cross stitch or something, if I'm still feeling crafty. So I also need to start the pattern for May. I haven't even started yet, so I need to get going on that so I can actually have May up on my door in time. So that will conclude the craft portion. And I will very quickly, to wrap up, I'm just going to talk about one of the books I had showed you last time I read, and it's Small Town, Big Magic. And this was way better than it had any, than I was expecting. I was going to say that it had any right to be, but what does that even mean? But it was very good. And I'm really looking forward to the sequel and whatever else comes up in the series. I think it's delightful. I loved her world building. So again, this is Small Town, Big Magic by Hazel Beck. And it was a nice one, actually, even though it sort of has that sort of witchy magic, um, modern fantasy vibe to it, which would make you want to read it around Halloween usually. This was actually a nice one to read in the spring because a lot of it is set around this festival that is a spring festival, um, where they have these special redbud trees, um, and it has some fluff in it, but it wasn't as fluffy as I was expecting. Like it was, there was some really interesting drama in here, and it wasn't, um, but it all, and I really loved the main character. Emerson. She is, I think it was Emerson's her name. Emerson, yeah, Emerson Wild. I like it because she wasn't perfect. She's kind of a jerk. Like, and it works. It works really well. So she is a sympathetic character, but she has like her flaws are very evident. She is one of these people that's used to taking charge of a situation, used to being the leader, and takes on maybe more than she should, and also falls into the trap of always thinking that she knows the right way forward, when really what she needs to do is sort of step back and let her friends and family help her. So her flaws were very understandable, and it didn't, you could see the conflict that was coming from it, but it didn't make her an unlikable character. So it was very well balanced, I thought, of being someone who had, has all these paranormal powers, but is also sort of has realistic flaws. And that just sort of anchored the sort of paranormal storyline. So I thought that was really nice because at its heart, it's a book about friendship and family relationships. And I thought it was a really well balanced. And I would highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to some of the sequels. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for sticking with me for a bit. And if you made it to the end, thank you for listening to me ramble about yarn spinning, which is my new obsession, my new hyperfixation. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate if you are new here. Usually there is more cross-stitching. So come back. If you're a returning viewer, subscriber, thanks so much for being here. It's all the comments have really made me feel like part of a community, and it's really been fun to discuss things with people in the comments. And I try to get to everyone when I can. So I really appreciate all of you. So that's it. I'm Judy, and this has been District Stitcher. Tune in next time. Have a good week.